Today, I'll tell you about the movie Bronson.
When do I go back? Now, Mr. Peterson, we aren't going to start up all that silliness again, are we?
In a solitary prison cell, Charles Bronson is preparing for a visit from the guards. Completely naked, his body is covered in something fat and there are scrapes on his head, and blood is flowing. But that's all nothing compared to the opportunity to fight the guards. The guards never came to see him. One by one, they came and now he just fell apart at once. Several people surrounded Bronson and he resisted, but they managed to overpower him. Before Charles Bronson received this nickname and became the most famous prisoner of Great Britain, he was known as Michael Gordon Peterson. Michael was born into an ordinary family with an average income. However, already at school, he discovered some inclinations in himself. For example, a propensity for violence and a desire to become famous as a schoolboy. Michael liked to beat teachers and other students, but he was never punished for this at home. Together with Peterson, we'll talk about his story. You know about Michael. When did he settle down? He began to steal from the cash registers for work, and when the police arrived, he attacked them with fists in the middle. In the 70s, he got married and started. As a child, his family lived in poverty, so he decided to get money by robbing a post office. There wasn't a lot of money there, but he got armed robbery for Michael. His mother promised 7 years in prison at trial to him, that Michael would be released through 4 years old. But Michael is like that. I liked it behind bars. What did he decide to do? Extend his sentence by beating up guards and employees in prison. He intentionally refused to learn a new profession at a sewing workshop and tried to make them do what the jailers wanted. And when the guards arrived, he beat them up as well. And he also received praise thanks to his behavior in prison. Others are a real celebrity. The prisoners feared and respected Michael. Besides, the dragon started dating and he got to know his future. The owners of the nightclub treated him well so that Michael would not become used to their hospitality. He was often transferred between prisons and given a little rest. In each new prison, Michael did the same things as in the old one, and the disgrace was the same. They started writing newspapers, and Michael realized his dream had come true. He had become famous. When the jailer's patience had run out, Michael was sent to a mental hospital. He didn't like this place. The staff were not very professional, and I didn't respect him. I even stabbed him. Michael didn't take the pills because he was dehydrated due to excessive drinking. He refused to take them because it was fundamentally wrong. Shove it up your ass. But Michael wasn't beaten by guards in the prison. To get them to do something, you need to be in a mental hospital where the staff are not particularly friendly. He was simply immobilized and stabbed. After spending some time in the hospital, during his stay, Michael became quiet and obedient, and he wasn't interested in dancing anymore. I just wanted to get out of that place. Where did he manage to put his plans into action? It was enough to make me a little nervous. One of the patients was transferred to another clinic, but that's not what I wanted. Michael was convinced that, for a minor offense, he would be sent to prison, but his situation was much worse than that. They were kept in solitary confinement for 26 years without trial at this institution. Michael organized riots, which led to unjustified spending of money, and it was decided to recognize him as sane and send him free. However, Michael met with the elderly. His parents brought him home, where they allocated a small room for him. Michael didn't like that, and he needed more space. His old bed and things made a difference in his life. Michael went to his uncle's place. I knew a lot of helpful people and could help his nephew, who had just got up. In Uncle Jack's home, Michael was well received and treated with a cocktail, and promised to help him live. Uncle Jack kept the old one at his place. Mike found out where to get his old one, an acquaintance with whom he communicated well. In prison, this man owned nightclubs more like a hangout, but he had a job for Mike. Mike could only beat up people by punching them in the face, and that was just a job. He was provided with his friend. He advised him to change his name to something more sonorous and formidable, so he could perform in the ring as Michael Peterson. The name Michael Peterson somehow did not seem prestigious at that moment, and it appeared on the light Charles Bronson took on as an alias. It was the name of a real actor who once shone on the screen, embodying brutal and formidable villains. Michael started dating a girl named Allison, who had a boyfriend, but it wasn't him. I was particularly worried about him arranging underground fights, where Michael had to show something special to be remembered by the audience, and he urinated on stage. I fought against my rival, who was also fighting with 2 others, and they even organized a fight between Michael and him. Michael started fighting with these dogs in order to get good money, but he didn't realize that Allison's boyfriend was watching. when I discovered that she loved someone else. I went to a jewelry store and simply picked up the ring I liked. We found thousands of pounds worth of jewelry. Allison didn't appreciate the gift because she said she was going to marry her boyfriend. Michael was sent to prison for robbing his own jewelry store. He was not so happy about this, as he was still a famous person. Michael spent only 69 days in prison before being released. They brought him before the head of prison, who asked him for the famous prisoner's note. He took it and read it carefully. Michael didn't like the arrangement. He quickly became bored in the place and decided to diversify his stay by reading books. When he was in a cell, a local employee came to him. Bronson took the book to the library. He immediately informed the guards about it, and they brought him a phone at the other end of which was the warden. Michael promised him that he would kill the librarian if he didn't get what he needed. If he didn't receive a clear answer, he needed to send someone to the prison to ensure that he received what he wanted. The camera was guarded so they were slightly adjusted. The head of prison knew that the doctor from psychiatric hospitals was coming to see Michael, so he prepared for his visit. It should look presentable and be as comfortable as possible. This man, Bronson, is the owner of a rainbow-colored camera. He strips down to the goal and smears an ointment on himself to be an opponent. It's harder for him to keep up. The librarian smears his back and greets guests with outstretched arms. The guards did not stay in debt with their hugs. They bought Bronson in accordance with all the rules. A prison social visit followed. Michael received a visit from the boss after that, but he made it clear in no uncertain terms what would happen if Bronson didn't stop driving. He'd end up dying in prison. According to Michael, the boss seemed to agree, and they argued for a while. Be quiet at sea. Devote your due date. In solitary confinement, Michael started visiting the prison circle. He even discovered a talent for visual arts, though his drawings were peculiar and he wasn't interested in the creative circle. Thanks to the encouragement, this man, Bronson, continued. Even the head of the circle could draw. I tried to show Michael his drawings. He wanted to help Bronson be released early, but only if the prisoner's creativity was inspired by the comb. The head of the prison made it clear to Michael that if he kept quiet and continued attending his classes, then he would soon be free. They could really release Bronson. He had gone back to his old ways, but this time he had shown himself to be a creative person. The head of the prison was preparing tea for him. Michael grabbed and tied Bronson up himself. He stripped down to his underwear and smeared black paint on himself. He put on his hat and glasses, painted his face with paint, and began to produce music. When the boss of the prison came, Michael demanded that they turn on the music for the prisoners to listen to while enjoying a pleasant environment. Bronson began to play a melody on the guitar. Michael painted the hostage's face on a wall and opened his eyes with his own. When he got bored, he put on a hat and let the guards into the room with his victim. I had a good workout fighting off the attackers. The battle was notable after all. Bronson knew he wouldn't end up in prison. Freedom has never been fulfilled for him in the end. All Michael Peterson's dreams came true when he became famous under the pseudonym of Charles Bronson, and he regularly quenched his thirst for a fight. Michael spent the entire time filming a movie about his life. He has been imprisoned for 34 years, and 30 of those years were spent in solitary confinement. His release date is still unknown. Charles Bronson is recognized as the most violent prisoner in Great Britain.